So we're going to talk K-State football recruiting. They got a commitment yesterday, but have we discussed much like the in-state class in 2026? And I am not really that bothered or worried about all this, but there's so much chatter online right now about what Kansas is doing and how it relates to K-State. Obviously, a piece that sparked a lot of discussion around that was J.J. Dunnigan from Manhattan, who's James Dunnigan's kid. Cole, do you remember any particular games from his career? Anyway, let's dive into this a little bit, DY. Like how concerning should all of this be? Because it feels like a lot of fans, if you're too online, most of the fans are like really, really freaking out. I'm just at a point with like K-State football recruiting, like they've been so solid. They're good in the portal. They seem to be organized. Unlike everything we just talked about for the previous 25 minutes of the show, they seem to be very organized and have a plan and stick to it. So I don't know. It's not really bothering me that much, but you're much more down in the trenches of it than I am.
Yeah, well, I'll put it this way: for the fans that are freaking out, it's all about also resource and financial commitment allocation, right? Would rather them overspend for 6 or 7 Kansas high school kids in a not really good Kansas high school class, or would you like them to go get the 6 or 7 guys that they've gotten in the transfer portal that have a chance to start this year and maybe get you to a Big 12 championship? Because if you go and overspend for some of these Kansas kids, like you're maybe suggesting and encouraging, not you specifically, John, but just the ones that are kind of freaking out, then you don't get a starting left tackle in George Fitzpatrick. Then you don't keep starting defensive end Toby Osensami. You don't get to sign potential standout receiver transfer Jaron Tibbs. They put their money in those places. They don't really put their money into high school seniors or incoming freshmen that aren't going to play. You have to have a system and you have to stick to it, and they have. So I think Kansas overspend is kind of, maybe not drastically, but they put a lot of financial resources behind putting together this in-state class, right? And I actually think it was a good decision for them to do so, probably.
So I was just going to say, so a lot of this comes down to just your different programs in different places with different needs, because I agree with you, DY. I think for Kansas, a place that for the last however many years has just, they went through coach after coach who just didn't care about in-state recruiting and didn't try. Like they needed to really get in there and make a splash, and saw an opportunity here where perhaps it would be a little bit easier to jump in. And so like, let's capitalize on this. I think that's a very wise thing for Lance Leipold to do. It doesn't mean that the wise thing for K-State to do was then to match what they're like, be baited into, trying to overspend to come in like that. So like some of the guys, just be confident in Chris Kleiman and the program, and understand that Lance Leipold is also a good coach, and there's also a good program over there, and it's going to continue to be competitive, but it's not like this meltdown, the pendulum is completely swinging thing. It's like both programs are doing what I think is probably in their best interest right now.
Definitely. And to be honest, I should point this out too, even without that maybe extra oomph from a financial standpoint, that, like I said, does make sense for them to do. It's a good gamble on their part. I'll put it that way. They would have landed some of these kids regardless. And people say, well, that's not a good thing. Even the folks that cover KU recruiting will tell you that plenty of the kids in this particular class, for whatever reason, had like KU ties and backgrounds, or grew up in very, very strong KU households. And in the past, those kids would still end up going to K-State because KU's program was a dumpster fire. It is no longer a dumpster fire. They can swallow that pill and go to KU because that program is in a better spot than it once was. So they're part of that too. Like the kid they got from Lawrence, Josh Galbraith, he would have went to KU no matter what. Nate Sims, the receiver from Ottawa, same thing. Caden Snyder, the offensive lineman from Salina. So a handful of these guys would have went to KU no matter what too. But it just kind of worked out that way with this class. What I will say is I'm not a huge supporter / fan of this class, and relative to the in-state classes around it. So, yeah, I'm okay with the approach that K-State is taking. And to be honest, I haven't always felt this way, but I think K-State's perhaps the leader in the clubhouse right now for a grade bend tight ending in Premer.
I was going to say, you land Pramer DY, and that kind of flips the script, right? Back-to-back years, you land Cure, you land Pramer, you land top 50 recruits that reside in the state of Kansas, top 50 national recruits.
I think there's two absolute studs in this in-state class, Ian Premer and J.J. Dunnigan. And I think there's a couple solid guys after that, like Joshua Galbraith, for example, the linebacker at Lawrence, I really like. But outside of like 4 or 5 guys, I'm not sure there's anyone that'd be beating down the doors to take.
Yeah. And I mean, you did, to be fair, like people that hear you say, a lot of these kids grew up KU fans, and then like a KU fan hearing that's going to be like, well, we got a guy from Manhattan, Kansas, whose dad played at K-State. That's a unique situation. Let's just call a spade here. Like there's some things behind the scenes driving that recruitment that are a bit of a headache. So I don't know. I don't get too worked up about that necessarily. I mean, Tyron Parker, the receiver from Shawnee Heights, that's a kid that visited K-State multiple times. He was probably a take for K-State, right? DUI, or did they kind of hold off?
They would have taken him.
Yeah.
I don't know that they, in the last hours, they were aggressively beating down the doors, but they would have taken him. And in a normal year that this wasn't transpiring, this little KU surge, K-State would have got that kid.
Yeah. What about Maxwell Robinson, Derby, offensive lineman? He looks like one of the only. There's 7 kids in the top 10 committed to KU, according to.
I think now that he would be a big project, and since Kansas State, and I don't know why his name is escaping me, took the kid from Mill Valley, who's probably a project, but maybe a good one. I don't think they would take both. So why am I blinking on the name?
Barber. Lamarcus Barber.
Barber.
Yeah, from Mill Valley. Yeah. I only mentioned Robinson because he's third ranked recruit on the On3 consensus, but I don't know anything about him. So
I don't know if his stock's kind of dripping a little, dropping.
Yeah. What you said makes sense. I mean, he's listed as an interior offensive lineman. Barber's an interior guy, so I'm not sure you take 2. Okay.
Yeah.
And the 27 class is not going to be really, really deep either in Kansas.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of the pushback that frustrated me that I saw to this yesterday was like, kind of this, small time Chris Kleiman not able to compete. That I think is the most. I know that was, and I'm sorry. Look, let's just say it. Harambe, that's for you, dude. The meltdown yesterday. Love you. Love what you bring to the Discord. But seeing like, hey, this is small time. Like, first of all, they're the one super national prospect that's in the class is the one that they appear to be leading for right now. And then 2, they landed Lincoln Cure last year. They've done a really good job nailing down some pretty high level pieces in the transfer portal. Like I don't think that's a fair characterization at all of what's happening here. If you want to say Lance Leipold is perhaps getting the better of him, then like that's a different discussion. But I think we've already discussed where we land on the nuance of that discussion.